afternoon. Haven't done a Physiology Friday in a while because my Fridays have been a little crazy the last couple weeks. And I was contemplating on whether or not I was going to be able to do today's even because still kind of suffering from my reactions from yesterday's lunch, which made it all that more important for me to actually do today's live because that's what it's all about. And it's my reactions to food and lost my train of thought. Anyway, running a little late this morning is trying to figure out all this chaos because when I did stream before, adding in something, sharing a tab was like super easy. But now when I try to share the screen, it's only giving me the option to share my StreamYard screen. And I'm like, obviously, I don't want to share that screen. I want to share the other tab. But it's not pulling up that option anymore. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's a setting. I don't know what I did. So I'll have to figure that out. But anyway, there was a cute little video that I was going to show today that just kind of explains how the body responds when an allergen is in play. I don't know. It was a cute little video, but since I can't share it, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you guys can have just the volume. Let me try that. Can you hear that? How's that? Weird. Okay, well, I'll stop the video then. Essentially, what happens is when our body is exposed to an allergen, it releases histamines into the body to help counter the allergen. So for me, that's not necessarily a good thing. Sorry, my eye is starting to water. Because I have a histamine intolerance, I'm not exactly sure where, when or where that came into play. Like I said on the previous stream, I'm been like 20 years now trying to figure out my GI issues. Most of the doctors that I've had have essentially thrown their hands up in the air because they can't figure it out. Just one thing after another keeps getting piled on. It's like, well, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. But no concrete diagnosis as to like what the umbrella is. So I've got like all these little miniature diagnoses that don't explain everything. And in my mind, there should be one big diagnosis that explains all the little ones underneath it. Hence the term, what I term the umbrella diagnosis. In my own personal research, what makes sense to me is something called mast cell activation syndrome, MCAS. There's also MCAD, which is a activation disorder, I think is what the D stands for. But in looking at my symptoms, that's really what makes the most sense to me. And I talked to my previous doctor about that, and we opted not to run that test because of several different things. Number one, you have to be in the middle of a major reaction in order for the test to pick anything up. So like yesterday would have been a good time for me to go get tested. But the other part of that is the test is very time and temperature sensitive. So from the time the blood is drawn, you have a limited time till you can get it to the lab before the test is no longer valid, as well as if it goes outside its temperature range at any point between when the blood is drawn and when the lab is running their testing, it also invalidates the test. And at the end of the day, the course of treatment, if you turn out to be positive for mast cell activation syndrome, is a daily course of allergy meds, Benadryl, and like Allertec or Zyrtec or whatever allergy meds. But you're taking it in a higher dose than normal, and you take it every day. I already take an allergy pill every day. Not so much in the higher doses that would be recommended for MCAS. But again, getting that diagnosed is a challenge in and of itself. And yeah. So yesterday during my Thready Thursday stream, I'd eaten lunch right before, and as the stream started to progress, I started to have some really bad reactions. My head started to I started to get a really bad headache. My lips were starting to tingle. I was starting to itch. My nose was running. So I ended the stream because I knew what was going on, and the reactions were only going to continue to get worse. So I needed to jump off and get some Benadryl in me and try to halt as much as I could the reactions that were coming. Still kind of suffering a little bit of that. I've got, my eyes are real puffy, and they're, for lack of a better word, crunchy. Like when you wake up and your eyes are kind of glued closed almost. So they're still very icky. I have a rash that broke out right here on the side of my neck. So I've been putting hydrocortisone on it to try to keep the itching down because it itches like crazy. There's a couple other places where I broke out in a rash from that. And I'm still a little bit itching, so I had to take some Benadryl first thing this morning. So I'm a little brain foggy because of the Benadryl. But also because I've taken Benadryl, now my nose is starting to run and itch. I've got my Craft Room staple baby wipes. Always have them. I buy it by the case. Always in the craft room, so I always have them handy. So yes, I'm very itchy still. As you can see, I'm like, kind of wanting to crawl out of my skin a little bit right now. But we're going to move forward because you get to see the raw reality of what happens to me when I eat foods that cause reactions. So what I'm going to discuss today is specifically my salicylate sensitivity and my histamine intolerance and how those two interact with each other to make my life miserable. But in addition to these issues, I'm also lactose intolerant. I'm sensitive to wheat products. I'm celiac negative, so I don't have celiac disease, but I am very sensitive to wheat products. which was interesting because my DNA test said I'm not, but whenever I eat wheat, I have a reaction. So, well, interesting there. Um, I've also had an anaphylactic reaction to shellfish, but my DNA allergy test said I'm not allergic to shellfish. So I'm not completely trusting in that DNA test, the allergy testing that I did, because two known factors that I know I experience um, are contrary to what that test is saying should happen. Same with potatoes. Whenever I eat potatoes, I have a reaction. But according to my DNA testing, I only have a minimal, a low reaction to potatoes. Um, but when I eat potatoes, I have a pretty significant reaction to them. So, um, yeah, lactose intolerant. I'm wheat sensitive, salicylate sensitive, histamine intolerant. Raw antigen shellfish. That is actually my true allergy with shellfish, is the raw antigen, not the shellfish itself. Um, but not worth the risk. Having experienced anaphylaxis to it once already, I prefer to just not eat shellfish and risk. I prefer not to risk death. I prefer breathing. It's much more pleasurable than sitting in an emergency room. So what is a salicylate? Most people are not sure what that is. It is the main ingredient, in aspirin. Aspirin is salicylic acid. Say that fast 3 times. So no, I can't take aspirin. That would aspirin is kind of almost in its purest form in a respect, or in its most concentrated form. So that would cause the most severe reaction for me. So that's a big no. But it salicylates exist in food and lots of different non-edible products. It exists in perfumes, shampoos, and soaps. It can even in dog food, in your pet food. So you're exposed to it constantly. And so far, the only external, I don't say dermalogic response, but that would be incorrect. External, like when I touch something that I react to, oddly enough, is green beans, which kind of sucks because one of my bearded dragons, that's his favorite food. He loves his green beans, and so when I feed him his green beans from my hands, my fingertips will start itching just from touching the green beans. And it also sucks because it's one of the few vegetables that I actually really like. And no, it is the only thing on my DNA testing, allergy testing, that pegged completely out. There was on the test, it had 6 bubbles. So your first 2 are low, middle 2 are medium, and then your last 2 bubbles are high reactivity to them. And green beans pegged out all the way at 6. And considering that's also the only thing that if I touch it causes a reaction, I tend to believe that if eating them would be just as severe. So I just don't touch green beans, or I don't eat green beans. If I invested in some gloves or something, I would, whatever, but I don't handle them all that often in order to, I don't get a severe reaction. Like I said, just my fingertips will itch for a little bit after I hand feed my dragon. But I did put together this little spreadsheet. Let's see if I can. I was hoping it was going to show up a little bigger than that. Bummer. So I will just kind of talk through some of the examples of this. So down the left is the foods that I like to eat. There's lots of on the lists. When you pull up the lists, there's other foods on there, is what I'm trying to say. But I just created this little spreadsheet with foods that I personally like to eat, because I didn't see any point in going, oh, well, there's this, and this would be my reaction when I know that it's irrelevant because I'll never eat it. That makes sense. So if you, the very first thing, straight off the out of the bat, out of the gate cage, whatever, banana. I love banana. It's one of my favorite fruits. From a salicylate standpoint, it's negligible. Very, very, very low. There is some, but it's very minimal in salicylates. However, it is a very high histamine food. There's lots of histamines built into a banana. So I have to balance what reactions is it going to be worth it. And for me, because I have so many different sensitivities that play off of each other, for me, it is really about what the reaction's likely to be and what I have to try to do that day. Because if I didn't eat something simply because it wouldn't cause it, let me start over. If I did not eat something because it would cause a reaction, there would be nothing left for me to eat. If you watch this on replay and put it up on your TV screen, you'll be able to see that this list is huge. It's actually 2 pages long, 3 pages, and it covers fruits, vegetables, herbs and spices, beverages, like tea and coffee, sodas, beer. Oh, it's funny, soda is actually not on the list. I didn't put it on there. Sugars, dairy, proteins. So it breaks it down into the food groups. This spreadsheet does, based off of what I would normally eat. Berries are generally a no-no, which really kind of sucks because I love berries. Like strawberries, I I love strawberries enough that I just kind of I hedge my bets, think about where I need to go. Do I need to go anywhere today? Because they are both high in salicylates and high in histamines, as well as oranges, pineapple, cantaloupe, which are my other favorite fruits. So eating any of those, I'm going to have a double whammy reaction to what I'm eating. Tomatoes are another food that is the same thing. They're high in salicylates, they're high in histamines. It's kind of a no food for me, but I suffer the consequence because again, I love them. And peanuts, high in salicylates, moderately high in histamines, makes my lips feel funny. Wagering that whether it's worth eating it. I just realized that you guys are on screen and I'm just like randomly flipping through these slides. Starting to think the GI stuff passed on too. It could very well be. And that MCAS, I do believe, is genetic. So again, I had some websites that I was gonna put up on screen to give you guys some information, but I will add them into the description box, since for whatever reason I cannot figure out how to share my screen all of a sudden. So Reactions to salicylate. So if you're salicylate intolerant or sensitive, I am just sensitive to it. So some of the things that you might experience if you are sensitive or intolerant to a salicylate: sinus inflammation or infections, polyps in the nasal or sinus cavities, asthmatic reaction, so difficulty breathing, tightness in the chest, hives, fever, tissue swelling, inflammation of the large intestines, which cause abdominal pain and discomfort, and diarrhea. So those are some fun little things. If I just eat something that is high in salicylates, I could experience any combination of those symptoms. Okay, now keep in mind, I've now had a reaction. I've eaten something that had salicylates in it. I've now had a reaction. Natural human systems release histamine into the body in order to fight off the reaction or to help with that reaction. But I'm also histamine intolerant. So as my body releases histamine naturally to deal with the salicylate reaction, I then have a negative reaction to the histamine that it just released. Okay? You guys following me so far? So, symptoms of a histamine intolerance: headaches, bloating, abdominal pain, nausea, flushing, especially of the head and the chest, congested, runny, or itchy nose, red, itchy, watery eyes, dizziness, and heart palpitations. Some of the less common symptoms that you may experience is also low blood pressure, narrowing of the airwaves, or, having air passages, and shock. So, again, that low blood pressure, I'm also, courtesy of COVID, I have reactive hypoglycemia. So the potential that not only could my blood sugar drop below normal because of eating, so could my blood pressure drop because of eating. So think about those things where I was saying, like strawberries, for example. If I eat a strawberry or eat some strawberries, and I don't know what my tolerance level is. When I kind of use the bucket theory when it comes to these intolerances. You start each day, theoretically, you start each day with an empty bucket. I tend to start each day with a little bit in the bucket because like I said, I'm still suffering symptoms today from yesterday's lunch. So my bucket is not empty this morning. So anything that I eat today or drink today adds to that bucket. And eventually that bucket gets full and it starts to overflow. And when it overflows, that's when I experience those symptoms. Okay. So how many strawberries could I eat before symptoms hit? Every day could be different depending on how full that bucket is. If I've already eaten high salicylate stuff and high, whatever, then my bucket is almost full and I could eat one strawberry and it kicks the bucket over and I'm miserably sick. Or if my breakfast and my lunch were relatively clean and my bucket's still empty, I might be able to eat 4 or 5 strawberries before the bucket is overflowing and I'm miserable. But I digress. So in the realm of strawberries, so say I've eaten enough strawberries that, my bucket is overflowing and I'm starting to experience symptoms. For me, usually the first thing that happens is my nose starts to get a little stuffy and I might itch a little bit. That rapidly, and again, my body goes, oh, okay, she's eating something. I need to send some histamines out. to counter what she's experiencing. And then my body goes, oh, excuse me? You're going to do what? You're going to put this stuff into our body, and it causes problems. I don't have any control over my body releasing histamines. It's a normal, it's a normal function. But then when the histamine is released in response, the headache starts, the bloating and the gas starts. I get nauseous. Sometimes I get flushing. It's really weird because it's always like I feel heat in one specific spot on my face, which is weird. And again, that you get that full allergy reaction. My eyes start burning, itchy, watery. My nose plugs up. And the heart palpitations is kind of an interesting aspect to that, because that I also experience that. I experience that after I eat all the time, and as part of the reactive hypoglycemia. So now another rabbit hole for me to dive into is, how does hypoglycemia and histamine, is there a connection between them? And maybe that's why my palpitations get so strong in those moments, is maybe I've got two different conditions causing palpitations. Because it's really weird when they happen. I can feel them. It feels like my heart is up in my throat. But my blood pressure doesn't change. My heart rate doesn't change. But I'm experiencing this weird, fluttery, fast-paced whatever in my heart. And it's like, it doesn't make sense to me how I'm feeling that, but put a heart rate monitor on me and my heart rate is not elevated. Don't know. Yeah, I would definitely keep a food journal, especially if you're noticing that after you eat it, you feel worse than you did before you ate. So I'm still itching everywhere. And yes, I cannot find the original packaging for those burritos that I ate yesterday. I've got like 10 more in the freezer. I don't think I'll be eating them because I am really miserable. I was miserable most of yesterday. I'm still not feeling well today. It's not worth it. As much as I like them, and they're really good. It is not, for me, it is not worth this reaction, and to still be feeling this 24 hours later makes me very nervous. I have not eaten anything yet today. I've got my coffee going to get the caffeine in to deal with the ADHD, but I'm afraid to eat anything today because my bucket is already almost full. I can, just because and I know that because I'm still having reactions from yesterday. So I know my bucket is still, very full. So I'm afraid to eat anything. But I did get a lot of sleep last night, which was cool. I'm going to mute real quick because I got to blow my. Yucky, yucky. So yeah, I don't know. I may just make this a relative fasting day and just stick with, beverages because yeah, feeling a little miserable today. Ugh, my eyes are itching. Where was I? Lost my train of thought. Squirrel. Mm. So let me pull up some information on mast cell activation syndrome. And again, since I can't screen share these, I will put the links to all of them in the description, so people can go and research them themselves. So mast cells are allergy cells responsible for immediate reactions. They cause allergic symptoms by releasing products called mediators stored inside them or made by them. In allergic reactions, this release occurs when the allergy antibody, which is present on mast cell surfaces, binds to proteins that cause allergies. This triggering is called activation, and the release of these mediators is called degranulation. Some of the mediators are stored in granules in the mast cells and are released quickly, and others slowly, only after the cell has been triggered. Mast cells can also be activated by other substances such as medications, infections, insect or reptile venoms. These responses, while not desirable, are made by normal mast cells. They are called secondary activation because they are due to secondary external stimuli. Sometimes mast cells become defective and release mediators because of abnormal internal signals. Certain mutations in mast cells can produce populations of identical cells called clones that overproduce and spontaneously release mediators. The spontaneous production of mediators in the clonal mast cell is called primary activation, and they can grow uncontrollably, and are usually sensitive to activation in a condition called mastocytosis. Lots of big words there, sorry. MCAS is a condition in which the patient experiences repeated episodes of symptoms of anaphylaxis. High levels of mast cell mediators are released during these episodes. The episodes respond to treatment with inhibitors or blockers of mast cell mediators, aka allergy medications. The episodes are called idiopathic, which means that the mechanism is unknown, or that is caused, it's not caused by allergic antibody or secondary. So symptoms of symptoms of anaphylaxis, So symptoms of anaphylaxis. Heart-related symptoms, including rapid pulse, low blood pressure, and passing out. Skin-related symptoms, including itching, hives, swelling, and skin turning red, aka flushing. Lung-related issues like wheezing, shortness of breath, harsh noise when breathing that occurs with throat swelling. And gastrointestinal tract symptoms like diarrhea, nausea with vomiting, cramping, and abdominal pain. Sound a little familiar? Just reading that, it's like, so it sounds like I experience anaphylaxis on a darn nearly daily basis. Interesting, eh? So treatment for MCAS, the goals of treatment are both diagnosis and patient relief. The immediate goal is to provide relief for the patient. Lack of response suggests that MCAS is not present. Treatment of acute episodes should follow the recommendations for treatment of anaphylaxis, starting with epinephrine, if indicated by the severity of symptoms. Antihistamines, such as first-generation receptor blockers, Benadryl, and Sudafed. I'm not going to try to say their big scientific names. Can be effective for itching, abdominal discomfort, and flushing, but their use may be limited by side effects, such as sleepiness. Second-generation antihistamines include loratadine, cetirizine. So these are your daily, like Zyrtec, Allertec. What are some of the other allergy, like daily allergy meds? I take the generic. I take the Costco version of Zyrtec, which is called Allertec. So I'm not sure what other daily allergy meds are, but again, taking those second generation, those daily allergy meds. are preferable due to fewer side effects. Treatment with histamine receptor blockers such as ranitidine or famotidine can be helpful for abdominal pain and nausea. Just beware, ranitidine has recently had some medical, some stuff come up, and there's some recalls going on. That is, what's the generic form of that? I'm drawing a blank. Google real quick. Zantac. Ranitidine is Zantac. And there has been some recalls going on because there's an ingredient in it that has been found to be cancer inducing. So if you are currently taking Zantac or any generic brand of that, please do some research on the recalls of that. And then famotidine is Pepsid. Wow. Okay, those are some really big words. Montelukast and Zafralukast for wheezing and abdominal cramping. Corticosteroids are helpful for edema, hives, and wheezing, so swelling of the limbs. That's what edema is. Water retention, fluid retention. Amulas. Yep. I'm not going to try to say that. I think that's how do you spell that? I think it's Ozempic Amala. I think. Oh, Xolair. I'm like, I know I've heard of it. That's the OMALIZUMAB is the non-generic. It's the medical whatever name of it. But Xolair is what most people would know it as. Has been reported to reduce mast cells reactivity and sensitivity, which can reduce anaphylactic episodes. Interesting. So not like my current primary care doctor is even going to address this issue. So again, trying to find myself a new doctor. So, again, if you think about what my responses are to salicylates, what my responses are to histamines, that's why when I was doing my research, it led me to MCAS. I actually joined several Facebook groups for MCAS and MCAD sufferers. And hi, Willow, how are you? Oh, I'm Kelly. Hi. Invite, but that's okay. I got told right out of the gate that my notifications, at least my daughter didn't get the notification. So I don't know if YouTube's being silly and goofy again or not, or if it's just her phone. But yeah, that well, I was doing my own research and trying to figure out what was causing all of my gut issues. I just kind of plugged in all of my symptoms and said, I did it on a symptom checker, probably like WebMD or something. And MCAS is what popped up. And that's when I went and talked to, I'm itching. My, what's that? Oh, I'm so brain foggy. Ointment for itching. Anyway, whatever it is, must be wearing off because it's starting to itch again. But that's what led me to MCAS in the first place. And so I kind of went down that rabbit hole, did a lot of research. And like I said, I joined some Facebook groups to learn a little bit more about it. And ultimately, I do still think that is the umbrella issue. that leads to all these other GI problems that I experience every single time I consume any kind of food. So Callie and Willow, with you coming in late, I was kind of talking about my salicylate sensitivity and my histamine intolerance issues and how that affects me physically whenever I consume food. Yesterday during my live stream, I started to have a reaction to the lunch that I had eaten and had to end my stream early. And here I am 24 hours later, and I'm still kind of suffering those from yesterday's lunch, hence the constant itching. And I actually broke out in a rash right here on my neck. You guys could probably see it because I've been itching and scratching. It's like, ah. But I put some cortisone. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know. The cream that you put on, like for bug bites and stuff, to stop the itching. Before I started the live, and I was doing fine, but now it's starting to itch again. I should have brought it in with me, but it's all the way in my other bathroom on the other side of my house. But so yeah, the GI stuff is never fun, especially when one plays off the other. Again, that's the spreadsheet that I was sharing earlier. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, it's like, dealing with insurance, it's like you can't get treatment without the diagnosis. But in the case of MCAS, you can't get the diagnosis without, it's so finite in how to get that testing done that it's almost impossible. So it's like, how do you even deal with that? And then double whammy that with a primary care provider who writes off everything that's going on as something stupid, and doesn't really listen to the patient as to what's really going on. So I'm like, I'm not even going to broach this topic with him. So I'm like, yeah, not even worth it. I definitely need to get back into the routine of taking my allergy pills every day. I've fallen down on that. For whatever reason, I'm having a hard time just in general remembering to take my meds. But yeah, even last night I fell asleep. I was kind of nodding in and out about between 7 and 8. At like 7:45 or so, I kind of stirred awake, and my husband's like, "Why don't you just go to bed?" And I'm like, "Because I'm waiting to take my medication." My med alarm goes off at 8, so I'm like, I'm just waiting. And so when my alarm went off at 8, I got up, took my meds, and went to bed. And yay, I finally got some sleep. I actually didn't wake up until 9:30 this morning, so got a rock solid 13 hours of sleep. Hopefully that is a signal, the end of this whole insomnia mess, and I'm actually back onto what is my normal sleep schedule. But we'll see what happens tonight. I did with my previous doctor, and that's kind of how it led to the conversation with her about the MCAS in the first place. And I've kept a journal off and on, and trying to get some answers. But again, with this primary care, my current guy, he just, and honestly, this last time I kept a journal for him was because he put something in my chart that was inaccurate, and it pissed me off, quite frankly. So I did a journal just kind of be like, give him a big old FU at my next appointment. But he put in my chart that I'm overweight due to excess consumption of calories. And I'm like, we never even discussed my diet, what I eat, nothing. And I'm like, so explain to me, how you make the assumption that I'm eating too much without ever asking me what I eat? And number two, how do I have excess calories in my system when every time I eat, within 20 minutes, I'm in the bathroom and nothing stays in? I've never been able to get an explanation for why I'm as heavy as I am when food does not stay in me long enough to even digest properly. So yeah, I was keeping a journal. Like I said, I was keeping a journal of what I was eating just to be able to go in there and give them a big fu. Because yeah, I mean, he put in my chart that we discussed doing bariatric surgery, and I'm like, we never had that conversation. Not once have we had that conversation. Because at this point, until we figure out my GI stuff, there ain't no way in hell you're cutting into that part of my body. No. Last thing I need is to create a bigger problem. You know, it's like, but I have consistently gained weight over, you know, over my lifetime. And quite honestly, when you look, my calorie count over the course of a day, even now, is around 1,500 a day, if that. And like I said, it doesn't ever, no food ever stays in long enough to be fully, you know, it's all rapid transit. Just TMI, sorry guys. So, and yet I still gain like 2 to 3 pounds every single month. Why? That makes no sense. That is completely ass backward that I continue to gain weight. And now I have the lovely, you know, menopause gets to come into play and kick my ass even further. So now not only am I slowly gaining weight, it's all midsection weight. So now I get to hear the lectures about, you know, heart disease and how that, and I'm like, oh my God, just, it's like, I'm tired of getting lectured about things when you're not even listening to what I'm saying. So it really frustrates me. I'm going to turn my heater down. With my cold feet, I always have a heater on in here because the cold air from the air conditioning gets trapped underneath my table. My feet freeze. Yeah, and exactly. Okay, and that's the thing is, but it's an intolerance to like everything because it doesn't matter what I eat. So there's always a reaction of some kind, and I would say 90% of the time it ends in bathroom emergency. I can't eat bread without reaction. Rice, cheese, any kind of lunch meat is a big no-no, and that's a double whammy because any kind of fermented, cured, anything like that, those kind of meats, they're both high in salicylate and high histamine, so it double whammies. Morning, Sophie, or afternoon. It's not morning. Still feels like a morning to me. I've only got my first cup of coffee in, so the squirrel's running really fast on the hamster wheel right now. ADD is not quite in check yet. The H part is not quite in check yet. But yeah, it's literally anything, everything. I mean, you can name off a food and I can tell you how I react to it. Nothing is safe. So and that's why I say, yeah, they're able to go, oh, well, it sounds like it's this intolerance or it's this sensitivity or it's this or it's this or it's this. But it's like, how is it possible for one single body to be lactose intolerant, wheat sensitive, salicylate sensitive, histamine intolerant, and have all of these different little micro things in one human being? It makes sense to me that there's a bigger picture there that is being overlooked. And for me, that bigger picture is that MCAS. But I think I need to start doing another journal, just for because I am in the process of looking for a new primary. And actually, I've been given information for a holistic provider. And when I had dual insurance, she took my primary, so I was going to switch to her. Well, now I don't have that primary insurance anymore since I'm not working. So I have to make sure that she takes what is now my primary insurance before I can switch over. I'm hoping so. I've heard a lot of good things about her. In fact, my massage therapist is who gave me her information. That's her doctor, who, my massage therapist was kind of going through the same thing. She was just really sick all the time. And, her primary kept running all these tests, and everything kept coming back negative or within normal range, negative. She's like, why am I sick all the time? All the time. And she was seeing this other provider for her hormone therapies. And she was talking to her about it, and she goes, let's try something. And she ran some allergy tests and found out she was allergic to mites, which are like everywhere, and we don't see them, but we all have them. It's in, every household. Not to mention, sorry, I bumped my computer. They're present in flour, and, they're everywhere. Well, with that information, she made some dietary changes, made some changes within her home, and suddenly felt a huge relief in her symptoms. And it was like, for a mite, who would have thought that, because, and again, I've said it before, and I think a lot of that has to do with like the classically trained medical providers. If it doesn't exist in a box, it doesn't exist on their form, it's not in a medical book, then it doesn't exist. Yeah, there's several. There's the autoimmune protocol, the AIP. That's probably, there's a general elimination diet where you pretty much just kind of take everything out, and you start with like your basic, your brat, like when your kid, for those of us that have kids, when your kids are sick, you got the brat diet: banana, rice, applesauce, and dry toast. And then you stick with really super bland foods for like 2 weeks, and then you add in a food, and then you add in a food, and then you add in a food. And documenting, and every 2 weeks you add in a new food, and then you're documenting as you go. Does this cause a reaction or not? The AIP, is that what you were talking about? Autoimmune protocol. And there are lots of different kind of diet plans out there like that. that could be because all you ate was rice because our food was gross. Yeah, but and if I was lived alone, following an AIP diet would be super super easy. Um, the biggest issue is that I have a very picky husband who doesn't like much of anything, so I have to make the decision to either cook 2 different meals every night for dinner, um, or suffer every night. And it's like, as much as I hate cooking, it's like, because the things that do fall under, and the things that do fall under the AIP, diet, only about half of those foods I actually like. And so that kind of makes it challenging. And then most of the foods on those diets, my husband does not like. He doesn't eat fruit. He doesn't eat vegetables. He's straight meat, potato, pasta, and you can't eat pasta. on an AIP protocol. Yeah, I've done paleo, I've done grain-free, I've done gluten-free. I did the AIP for a little while, way back, way back, with my fantastic doctor. God, that was probably 10, 12 years ago. We've tried ideal protein. Message me and let me know what you... Okay, Sophie, you're going to have to clue me in what that means. What you're trying to say. Let me know what you... Was that supposed to be can eat? Van rat. I've never tried rat. I might actually be able to handle that. I'm kidding. I've got like so many cookbooks, it's not even funny. And a lot of that I think has been driven by this, this issue is like trying to figure out what protocol works best. And probably my nose is itchy. Paleo was probably the most, when I felt the best. I was able to not only control my weight and lose weight when I was doing ideal protein, but I could not control my blood sugars doing ideal protein. So again, that became a conversation with my amazing doctor, is about what's the worst of the two evils. I felt good doing ideal protein. I felt well, but my blood sugars were just so it's like, do I deal with the constant up and down of a blood sugar to not have the digestive issues, or you know what I mean? It's like 6 of one, half dozen of the other, and I'm like, And as crazy as it sounds, I would absolutely rather have GI issues than have a headache constantly. Damn autocorrect. I don't know. Sam and I were talking about that the other day, that, when you're doing the voice to text, sometimes you send out messages that are oddly funny, but not what you meant to say. See, and I don't like fish. When I go down my list of like proteins, I'm beef, bacon, which I realize is pork, but I put bacon in its own category. Then ham, again, I realize it's pork, but I put it in its own category. And then after that, other pork products, and even then I'm kind of and picky. I like pork loin, not pork chop, and I like pork roast, but I don't like other cuts of pork. And then under that is chicken, which I'm not supposed to eat according to the DNA allergy testing that I did. It said I'm moderately reactive to chicken. And I never really paid attention to whether or not I react to that, because it's always mixed in with other things. So is the reaction to the chicken, or is it to whatever else is in it? I mean, it's hard to know. So you can't, no pork for you. And I've heard a lot of people, like just in the last decade, that they're starting to have issues with pork. And I'm wondering how much of that has to do with what's in their feed prior to slaughter that is then being passed on to us as we consume it. And then under chicken is fish, to finish that conversation out. I'm not a big fish fan. Never have been. I love my shellfish, which really sucks when I grew up eating crawfish. We used to go out and catch our dinner. Yes, I did say that. We used to go out. My mom, my mom would be like, "Hey, we're having a crawfish tonight." We'd all grab our baskets and go out to the river and go out and catch crawfish and bring them home. And my mom would clean them and cook them up, and that's what we'd have for dinner. And then in 2007, I'd have to really 2007, 2008, somewhere around in there. Sophie's going to teach you have better eating habits. She's got to get on with them cooking lives. I think that's another niche that you could have, Sophie, with your channel, actually, is doing some cooking streams. It was my last day of work when I was working at CPS. So what year did I graduate? 2000, so it would have been 2009. Because I was no longer going to be a student because I was graduating. So my job at CPS was ending. And my cubby mate, who I shared my cubicle with, wanted to take me out to lunch. And we went just up the road a little bit to a Mexican restaurant. First time I'd ever had shrimp ceviche. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really good. I never made it back to work. Before we even finished lunch, my throat was swelling closed. And she ended up driving me to the ER instead of back to work. And I spent the next 12 hours at the hospital trying to manage that anaphylactic reaction to shrimp. So yeah, no shellfish for me. As much as I love it, it's not worth the risk. Funny story, in getting tested for that initially, went to the allergist and they did the, where they poke your arm with all the proteins. Came back negative for shellfish. And I'm like, but I've had an anaphylactic reaction to shellfish. How is that possible? And he goes, well, I think it's the raw antigen in shellfish because it was ceviche. It's not really cooked. It's cooked with lemon juice. But he goes, so what I would like to do, he goes, bring in some raw shrimp and we'll have you eat it here in the office and I'll just have an EpiPen ready and we'll test you for the raw antigen. And I'm like, how about we say no? I'm like, no. How about I just not eat shrimp? How about I just stay away from shellfish? At that point, it had been, 10 years since I'd had any shellfish. I'm like, how about I just keep doing that and not eat shellfish? I was like, you want me to purposely try to die? No, thank you. I think I'll pass. But the only reason I was there to get testing for this, for this digestive stuff, trying to figure out what foods are causing the problem. And I was so annoyed with that guy because I go in and that was what the order was from my doctor. And he goes, we don't do general food testing. He goes, we do rule out testing. So you're going to test me for things I already know I'm allergic to in order to rule them out as the cause of my digestive problems. Make that make sense, because it made no sense to me. I'm like, great. I'm allergic to cats, so I won't eat them. We're good. Got it. I won't eat shellfish anymore. Got it. Okay, but that doesn't help me any. I don't want to get grocery store service. I don't eat sushi at all. My daughter eats sushi. And I don't know where she picked that up. But there's a Chinese restaurant in her hometown that we used to go to all the time when we'd go up there. And she would always get sushi, and I'm like, you're gonna eat that in front of me? The kids, yeah, and growing up, I mean, and Sam loves like crab legs and that kind of stuff, and they kind of grew up with me having this shellfish thing, and it's like, well, if you're gonna have crab legs, you have to sit at the other table, because I wasn't willing to risk her cracking a leg and getting juice in my food and then having a major reaction. Although now that I'm thinking that it could be in other things. Squirrel. Um, the restaurant we used to go to here, that always had crab legs in their buffet, I would never get out of that restaurant without having to run to the bathroom first. And I used to eat their crab legs all the time. But it could have been any number of things, when you're talking about, the Chinese foods, the spices that they use, most of them are high in histamine. So yeah, I don't know. We stopped eating there because literally 100% of the time, I would end up in the bathroom before the check was even paid. So we stopped going. Sushi, Sorry, I was just catching this comment way back there. With fish, yeah. I do like salmon, but I suck at cooking it. I mess it up every time. So when I have salmon, it's usually at a restaurant. In fact, one of our local restaurants here, they have a blackened salmon that's got like a citrus lime, which I have to leave off because it's a citrus lime butter something that they serve it with, and that makes my lips swell and tingle, makes my throat itch, and I'm like, yeah, is that because it tastes so good, but I know that it's really not advisable. But their blackened salmon, oh my god, it's so good. But other than salmon, I'm a plain white, cod, orange roughy. If I'm going to eat fish, it's going to be something, really, one of the white fish with a really, really mild flavor. Crabs. See, if I didn't know that you were talking, I'm assuming you're talking about a grocery store. You're going to go grab some at the Farm Boy. You got some little hot cookie and Wranglers and cowboy boots down the street selling sushi. What time is it? Oh, that's why my Benadryl's wearing off. I'm like, why am I itching so much? Yeah, yesterday was bad. That was horrible. I haven't had a reaction that severe in a long time. There's cowboys in Canada, aren't there? Or farm boys? I guess technically those are different. A farm boy is different than a cowboy in most places. There's a lot of I've discovered there's a lot of Canadians on YouTube. At least within this current community. there definitely seems to be a lot of Canadians. Little grocery store. I assumed it was the grocery store because you had said earlier that, you know, you were hesitant to go to the grocery store for your sushi. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about next Friday on medical stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Um, I don't know. If I do any streams over the course of, well, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about on Monday for Mental Health Monday, to be honest. Got the weekend to think about it. But yeah, if I do any streaming over the weekend, it'll be, you know, those just rando chats while I'm doing one craft project or another. Um, but yeah, it usually does. And like the most stupidest of times, I'll be in, you know, in the middle of doing something else and be like, oh, I have an idea. And if nothing else, I'll flip through, you know, I know I want to do a series, you know, over several weeks covering like the diagnostic criteria for personality disorders. I think there's 6. There's borderline, sociopathy, sociopath, narcissistic, avoidant, dependent. Off the top of my head, I don't know what else is there, but there's a few of them. You know, just to kind of discuss the diagnostic criteria of personality disorders and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'll think about it over the weekend. Your exes, histrionic. Thank you. Um, uh, yeah, there's a few. I don't know, because I still kind of have the idea in mind that that depression needs to stick with anxiety because they do tend to go together. And I'm just like, am I mentally prepared to discuss depression? Because I also think grief and loss needs to go with depression at the same time. Um, so it's like, but again, bite the bullet. Just bite the bullet, right? Yeah, personality disorders are very. I mean, it's very interesting. Oh, DID is also a personality disorder. Um, so I think there's more than 6. There might be like 8 or 9. Break the silence. Exactly. You know, because yeah, those are still very taboo topics. You know, people don't talk about depression. They don't talk about, you know, it's, you know, because people are going to judge me in some way or another. And it's like, it's depression is it. Yeah, it's, I hate to say it's normal, you know, but it really is normal, especially, you know, to almost 3 years into COVID. You know, depression is bad, and COVID is what kicked mine into high gear. And really, I mean, it took my feet right out from under me at one point, and it shocked the hell out of me because I was so focused on my clients and their depression and how they were feeling that I completely lost sight of myself and how I was feeling. And so suddenly I'm like, oh my God, I'm crying every day and I don't know why. You know, and it was like, oh, really? You know what I mean? It was like, oh, but all right. So, yeah, there's a huge stigma attached, for sure. And I mean, to mental health in general, there's a stigma attached, and the more of the mental health things that are deemed, crazy, the more stigmatizing it is. Like, to have a diagnosis of like schizophrenia, or paranoia, people go, oh, well, beware of those people. And it's like, they're human beings. Yes, they have the mental health disorder that, makes them different, makes them think different, makes them perceive different, but they're still human beings and deserve to be treated that way. But there's still just so much stigmatization around any kind of mental illness at all. It's frustrating, and heaven forbid you also have a substance use disorder, and it's like, you're the most worthless human being on the planet. Heaven forbid you have a drug problem and a mental health problem. you, you know what I mean? It's like, do you not realize that like 99% of the drug problem is mental health problem? Nobody wakes up and says, hey, I want to be a heroin addict today. That's a goal. No, they end up there because of a mental health issue 99% of the time. I guess with heroin, not necessarily. Sometimes it usually starts out, when you're talking about opiates, it usually starts out as a medical issue, and then they get attacked. They get addicted to the opiate, and then discover that it not only does it numb physical pain, but it numbs emotional pain, and then it becomes more about a mental health versus a physical health issue when we're talking about opiates. But yeah, I think I might just bite the bullet. Maybe Monday we'll do depression, talk about depression. All right. So it's been an hour and 20 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and bounce off of here. Remember, this is for educational purposes. And if you feel like you've got some issues, please seek professional advice from your doctor. Don't self-diagnose, because self-diagnosis often leads you down rabbit holes that are not necessarily true and could actually be pretty harmful. And that's not to say you can't rabbit hole and find information, but I would always say to bounce that rabbit hole information off of somebody who has been trained in the medical field. Ooh, so I have a hot spot forming on my cheek. Yeah, all those lovely little disclaimers. I'm not a doctor, and I didn't play one on TV, and I didn't sleep in the Hotel 6 last night. So yeah, guys, have a good weekend. Like I said, if I'm bored and crazy, I may do some random streams, just doing some crafting and shooting the shit with people. I don't know. We'll see how the Wi-Fi cooperates, because like I said before, weekends I have to compete with the PS4 for the Wi-Fi connection, and I usually lose. My laptop usually loses that fight to the PS4. So we'll see we'll see. But otherwise, if you bounce into other streams, make sure you're protecting your own mental health in those streams. And if it's triggering you, take responsibility for your own mental health and bounce back out. Have a good weekend, and catch you guys all in some other streams, maybe, or in one of my randos if I choose to do one. Bye.